we're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome into college football today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Dubs Anderson here on SportsGrid TV. It's rivalry weekend. We've got so much to get into, and in case you missed it, another fight breaks out, and unfortunately one of the games that I was tracking so closely. I told you you're going to lose a couple friends just temporarily over rivalry weekend, but luckily Dubs Anderson and I are still friends because right now his team is in action versus Texas, and there's some sparks going on. There's some exciting play taking place. But regardless, you got Texas up on top of Texas A&M 17-7. A big special teams play comes in trying to get Texas A&M back into this game. Also, a pick six gets them on the board. But more importantly, Texas coming up strong on those moments that they have to defensively, shutting down all opportunities and operations for offensive play for Texas A&M. Dubs, what are you making of this game so far before we shake things up? Maybe talk about what you banked on this weekend, on this Saturday more in particularly. What rivalry weekend has stood out to you the most, and so much more.
Kasey, what is going on? I tell you what, it has been the wild, wild west out here this afternoon. Punches are being thrown. We've seen the police enter the chat with a bit of pepper spray towards some of these players trying to stamp their flag in center field, and it really has lived up to the billing. You know, there's a bit of extra juice when it's rivalry week, but so too with this new look edition of the college football playoffs. There was so much on the line coming into the Saturday slate, and I guess the chaos in the wildness of rivalry week really started last night. So we saw it on Friday night. We're seeing it again here this afternoon. It's a fantastic matchup over there in Aggie Land at Kyle Field, but Texas A&M right now, they are up against it. They're really struggling to get that offense going through the first half. They showed a bit of life there with that turnover coming up big in the third quarter, but right now it's the Longhorns, and they've got them at arm's length. We've only got about 3 minutes 40 left here on the clock, and they're still leading 17-7. So it's getting a little late early in this one.
I know. I kind of had some hope for your Aggies there, although you know by a number of reasons why I slightly root for Texas, but I wasn't rooting against you, like I said. Exactly. I have a number of friends already that were just kind of at odds, especially with the ending of that Florida State game. Look, I didn't expect Florida State to do anything spectacular. I just thought it'd be like slightly less embarrassing, and then the since when can we not plant the flag? And since when does anyone interrupt the trophies? It's been part of tradition of college football forever and ever. Maybe the pressure is kind of getting to these guys because now that you think about it, rivalry weekend, the end of the regular season, a lot of these games are do or die. The bracket's going to completely blow up after today because we've seen a number of teams that needed to collect those W's fall short today that were sitting in a playoff bracket earlier. But what is all of this? What is all this chaos about, Dubs? Since when can we not? Is the tradition dying where you can celebrate on your enemy's field and let them know that you won?
Hey, look, it's all the same, Kasey, as long as it doesn't get out of hand. And, you know, all these players, they're very tough individuals. That's why they leave the helmets and the pads on. It's a melee, and that's as tough as it really gets, as long as the fans aren't, you know, I guess, you know, coming into harm's way. And I love it. This is the beautiful thing about college football, about some of these rivalries that go back decades upon decades. And on the betting side of things, when you come into a week like this, you can really just throw it all out the window. You know, we've got 3 touchdown favorites getting rolled. Just when you think you've got the cover, you can forget about that one late. And when there's so much pressure on the line, we see it from all the skill positions. It just gets a little tougher in trying to execute. And, you know, fair play to the head coaches trying to prime up some of these big programs for a big spot like this, especially some of the teams right in the hunt there. Now, all the teams that needed a win, you know, coming out of the Saturday slate, most of them have lived up to the billing, but there's 1 or 2 who have really hurt their chances of playing in a championship game, and so too trying to advance into the college football playoffs. So it has been a wacky week, and we're still not through it yet.
Oh, no, we're close. But I will say, let's give football fans some updates on the scores going around. Dubs and I kind of touched on what's going down in Texas, or Texas versus Texas A&M. 2-minute warning officially up. Texas holding on to that 17-7 lead, currently with the ball 4th and 3rd at Texas 25. Then an interesting back and forth between Kansas State and Iowa State. Iowa State maintaining their lead 29-21. Kansas State made a little bit of a rally in that third quarter, but again, this is one of those teams that they're so inconsistent, and when they start pulling together their game, Iowa State looking to run away with this one. 1:15 left in the fourth quarter. Then a big beating over here. UNLV 38-7 over Nevada. That was the expectation. The spread basically sung it to anyone who was banking on that game. What is interesting, though, Dubs, Houston versus BYU. This one keeps getting me a tongue tie because it's the Cougars versus the Cougars. Which Cougar is going to be on the bigger prowl here? 7-7 tied up. Now the first quarter has come to a close. Houston actually opened up the scoring, but BYU, I mean, they've kind of muzzled their chances in a number of ways. They went from perfection to just kind of a landslide, but we were expecting them to probably close out on a stronger note, although Houston has presented problematic defensively for a number of teams earlier in the season, kind of looking to get back in rare form right now. What do you make of this game so far?
Yeah, for BYU, they came into this one laying close to 10 points, almost sitting at double digits. They went off as 9.5-point favorites. They get through the first there. It's locked at 7 apiece. And for the Cougars, you know, you highlighted there was a lot of promise and a lot of expectation going as close as, 3 weeks ago. They dropped back-to-back losses against Kansas and then Arizona State. And there's a really good chance that they're going to be in a dogfight late in this one as well. You know, you got to keep in mind some of these other programs, for Houston Cougars who are sitting at 4-7, 3-5 in conference play. This is their championship game. This is their Super Bowl. For a lot of the young guys, they're trying to prove their worth. Even if your starters maybe aren't getting all the reps out there, the 2s and 3s are trying to prove that they should absolutely be in the conversation once they come in to, a new year next season. So there's just always a little extra on the line. And just when you think that you could be caught napping, here we are. BYU Cougars really in a bit of a scrap going into the second quarter. So it's locked at 7 apiece. It's not a bad one to jump in and live bet, if you will. I really don't see a way in which the Cougars separated. Well, I should say the BYU Cougars. They're both Cougars. So I don't think BYU are going to run away with this one. I think the closer that Houston keeps it going into the halftime break, they're going to be live in the second half and trying to win this thing straight up.
Yeah, I guess in this one we're looking for the alpha cougar. I don't know. I'm just trying to find a way to separate the two, but we don't want to get too crazy with any of that. 13:20 now left in that second quarter as it continues to remain deadlocked. Dubs, we're gonna be a little uncharacteristic here because it's the final week in regular season college football. But let's start with did you do a betting card today? What did your betting card look like?
I did a betting card. We've got a little top 5 in the mix, and so far it looks like we're going to hit 2 of the 5. Had the unders, Michigan taking on Ohio State. Cannot wait to break that one down a little later in the show. This is where the pepper spray came into the mix there. 13-10. It was a low score. Michigan with the big upset. I had Clemson on the money line. That one really didn't work out in favor. I had USC, the Trojans, grabbing 6.5, and they gave up 2 massive turnovers. I believe it was one turnover for 96 yards returned to the house, and the next one was, I think, 100-plus yards also returned to the house. So 2 very costly pick sixes. That takes that play out of the equation. And we've still got Oregon taking on Washington. Okay, it's gone final 49-21, so I'll get the cover there. That's 2-2. And then the Aggies, it's not looking so good, but I think the Longhorns are going to get the cover here. 5.5, they went off as favorites, and I sort of got to keep that on the lowdown, Kasey. Aggies, my team, but I bet against them. I just thought Quinn Ewers and the Longhorns were much better suited to this spot, and so far it looks like we may just be able to edge this one home. So the Aggie jersey, it's on the back burner tonight, but 3 for 5, I'd be happy. I feel like every week it's 3 for 5 when we're catching up here, looking back at the slate.
See, it's going with your head over your heart sometimes. Trust me, I have complimented Florida Gators way too much for the comfort of my skin. I can promise you that one. But as Dubs alluded to, we definitely got to unpack that Ohio State versus Michigan game. There's so much to get into, so don't go anywhere. Continue to hang with us here at College Football Today, the postgame show. Kasey Hudson, Dubs Anderson here on SportsGrid TV.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Back at it with college football today here on SportsGrid TV. The post-game show, Kasey Hudson and Dubs Anderson running through the Saturday slate of rivalry weekend. What a mouthful to say, right? But still, the drama was there, the entertainment was there, the scoring was there, the wins were there, but also the losses were there. At the top of college football today, all the way earlier, we were talking about what the bracket was potentially looking like thus far. They take the polls from Tuesday. They start piecing together the bracket first thing this morning. It gets released, and Ohio State, of course, was in the mix. They pulled off this tremendous performance versus Indiana, one of the top teams out there. They were flawless. They executed in all three aspects of the game. Ohio State blitzing like crazy for, almost once in the most that we've seen this season. But that wasn't the case versus Michigan today. A Michigan team that we've seen struggle in a number of ways, more so offensively. We know they have a good defense, but it's been a quarterback carousel. They've just fallen short on their game plan. Their identity hasn't existed, but they bested Ohio State today, 13-10. Dubs, what'd you make of this? It ended in fireworks in a number of ways, or one should say pepper spray. It was a spicy situation all around for Ohio State versus Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great rivalry. It was a great matchup, but this was one of the biggest losses of the weekend here for Ohio State and the Buckeyes. They get rolled 13-10 by the Wolverines. And, I'm still watching this one, sitting back saying, are Michigan even that good? Or is the number 2 team in the nation, Ohio State, a little vulnerable? I mean, for the Wolverines, they were out without star tight end Loveland. They didn't have that cornerback Will Johnson in the mix. And looking at this game, it was always going to be won in the trenches. Who could set the tone with that run game? And for the Buckeyes, they just couldn't get anything going downfield. Mullings for Michigan, he was fantastic. 32 carries with the rock, 116 rushing yards. He gets a touchdown. He gets it into the house. And if you look at the quarterback play, I mean, Davis Warren did nothing for the Wolverines, and they still won this game. He turned it over twice, only had 62 passing yards, but Ohio State was still not good enough to get the W and get the result. And this is a matchup that has always concerned them. They've now lost the last 4 straight going against Michigan. This was in the Buckeyes building. There is no excuses in this one. And I'll tell you what, it really boiled over after the final whistle, and rightfully so. Michigan tried to get their flag planted at the center mark there of the Buckeyes field, and Ohio State, they ran up. It was a push and a shove. It was a big melee, and it got so bad that the police at the stadium on the field had to get the pepper spray out, and they're going after any player they could find with the old pepper spray. So, look, it was a heated battle, as we always expect to see between the Wolverines and the Buckeyes. It lived up to the billing, but it was Ohio State, for me, who went missing in this one. They went off as 20.5-point favorites. They came into rivalry week as the second best team in the nation. They did not look like it whatsoever. So a little concerning, and they're going to drop some massive stock after this one.
Yeah, and that's the part that I'm intrigued to see is where they fall after the massive drop with this one, because, yeah, emotions are going to run high. For the most part, you got Will Howard, who hasn't had multiple turnovers in a game, comes in with 2 that were extremely costly to help this Michigan team look better than they have all season long. And if not for the run game, then that was something else to call into account, that why could Ohio State not slow it down? Why couldn't they stop it? It just seemed like they didn't really show up. Now, this morning, the playoff bracket was looking as such, having Arizona State as the 12 seed going against Ohio State at the 5 seed. If this game happened today, let's push every game back to yesterday and say that this game happened today. Arizona State looks like the stronger team, and Ohio State looks like they could fall short because they can't slow down their opponent and force them to play their game. So how bad do you think that this loss impacts Ohio State? Could it potentially take them out of the playoff running?
No, I think they're still going to stay within the top 12, but yeah, Arizona State have looked like a better program the last couple of weeks. I mean, they had a big win, 49-7 over Arizona, their Big 12 divisional dance in that spot. But no, for Ohio State, it's just a little troubling at this point of the year. It's not like you're looking for a referendum game, but these are the ones that you're priming up for. You're trying to get better with each and every single game as you make that push towards championship weekend, to the bowls, towards, the new looked college football playoffs. So certainly not a great thing at this time of year. But with that, no excuses. Every team is showing up to play in a spot like this. And for the Wolverines, we've always known that they've had that upside. We really just haven't seen that best version. And suddenly They played complementary football. Not that the passing game was really there, but the defense was super strong. The run game was there to match, and they just didn't give the Buckeyes a single inch out on that playing field, and they got the results. So I think Ohio State stay right in the conversation. They're certainly going to drop from that 2 spot. And for a team like Arizona State, if we want to keep it with the Big 12, they've been playing some really good football. The Sun Devils, they're on the outside looking in, and we probably need a couple of results to go in favor here late this evening. But that was another big victory over the Wildcats. They never really were tested in that first half. I believe they were leading 35-0 on the betting side of things. Going off, they're a 7.5-point favorites. So the old Sun Devils, they showed up. They're ready to rock and roll. And speaking of run game, their 2 lead rushers, we had Scatterbo go for 177 rushing yards, and Kyson Brown, he went for 8 carries and 100 rushing yards there as well. So it was run, heavy with the wheels, but enough to get the job.
Oh, yeah. And it's just so exciting to see a new team kind of get in the hunt there. And I know it sounds weird to say new, but typically when you talk about Arizona, it's the Wildcats you typically lean to. They're having a bit of a rocky season. Their program's kind of just been hit or miss here as they recollect themselves. But it's nice to see a new face in the crowd. Now, we're going to continue to work off of this playoff bracket that was released this morning and run through the game, see who was able to rise to the occasion and see who fell short. One thing to point out that Dubs and I will get back to on the other side of the break coming up here, you got Tennessee versus Vanderbilt earlier today. A pretty solid performance by Tennessee. The biggest concern is some of the plays dropped by their defense, but the larger concern is that the playoff bracket this morning has Tennessee lineup versus Georgia, a Georgia team that barely got past Georgia Tech yesterday. It took 8 overtimes. I mean, I kept checking the score and I was wondering if things were freezing, if the stream was broken, and then I realized, oh no, it's the next overtime, and they only got by 2 points, 44-42. So what to make of this Georgia team that could potentially go against a Tennessee team feeling themselves? We will find out here on College Football Today. Again, it's the postgame show. Kasey, Dubs, meeting you on the other side of this quick break here on SportsGrid.
Guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like and be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
back at it with college football today. The post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Dubs Anderson, running through the Saturday slate and trying to paint the playoff picture as best as we possibly can. Now, before we went to the break, we were talking about the bracket that was released this morning and the potential lineup of Tennessee taking on Georgia. Georgia with an ugly 44-42 win versus Georgia Tech yesterday. But then you got Tennessee that's kind of feeling themselves right now. 36-23 was their victory over Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt team that's actually been pretty decent defensively, at least in the beginning half of the year. Nico Iamaleava, 257 through the air, 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception. But they did not only rely on the aerial attack. No, Sampson on the ground still, 178 through 25 carries. This guy's impossible to stop. No matter who he goes against, he's going to find a way to touch 100 rushing yards. What did you make of Tennessee versus Vanderbilt? And what would you make of Tennessee taking on Georgia, again, if this game happened today?
They'd be with a very big shot. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, they've needed a couple of dominoes to fall in their favor to really make a tilt towards the college football playoffs, and they've got it. Everything seems to be going in the right direction here for the Volunteers. They had to put up 12 points in the second half to get the score, but for the Commodores, they tried to rally. They just couldn't find that spark late in this one. So for Tennessee, I was very impressed. Nico at quarterback, he was fantastic again. He goes with the 4 passing touch. Just gave it up on one occasion, but he was really impressive. 18 for 26, 18 completions, I should say, from 26 attempts. He's playing some really efficient football at the right point of the season. Sampson got it going with that run game, 178 rushing yards for the Volunteers. So I thought this was another really big spot. You know, they came into this week, they're right in the thick of it in terms of the playoff rankings, what's projected, and what would happen after today. And I think they'd absolutely give Georgia a scare. For the old Bulldogs, I mean, they almost got dusted last night. They couldn't stop a nosebleed right now. So they're not playing great football. Volunteers absolutely are, and that offense is looking fantastic.
You didn't want to take a shot at Nico's last name, Dubs? You want to give it?
Iamaleava. Nico Iamaleava. That's how I've got it. And to Nico, if I'm being disrespectful, apologies. I blame the Australian accent. It is not an easy one for your boy.
Oh, wow. You get to use the accent as a bailout. I have said his last name in probably 7 different variations all season long. But the more confidently and quickly you attack it, I'm pretty sure we're all going to get it right eventually. But I couldn't agree more. Some bleeding for Georgia. We'll find out what paints out down the way. This game I loved. South Carolina versus Clemson. I've been on the South Carolina wagon, as we call it in hockey. You hopped on the wagon, and I could not resist because of their defense and how they've just bested some of the top teams, or at least stayed close. Didn't look like it was their game for most of this game. And then Clemson, when it came to halftime, their game plan was let our defense continue to just hold them off. Wasn't a steady game plan because they were able to rally back in that fourth quarter. They're coming out on top 17-14 over Clemson, putting a halt to their ACC rise of royalty, one would say. But South Carolina, I feel like they deserve so much in the postseason. But where do you think things will land for them and how well they've done this season?
If we listen to head coach there, Shane Beamer, they should be in the playoffs. And I'm starting to buy in. If there's one team that is surging towards the postseason, it's South Carolina. They've been playing some really strong football. For Clemson, who've been pretty strong playing at home throughout the year, this was a tough spot. I mean, they were right on the balance of making it in to the projected playoffs. They were the number 12 team coming in for this week, rivalry week. They're going to lose stock from this. That was enough to bounce their chances. And for South Carolina, I think this is the team to watch out for, Kasey, and very intrigued of how the committee are going to see this one. I think they've picked up a lot of style points, and they're going to take a lot of credit. They were number 15 coming in for this week. I dare say they could punch their ticket to playing inside the top 12 and maybe ultimately playing in the college football playoffs. The Gamecocks were fantastic, and they have been the hottest team in college football over the last month.
I know, and you mentioned stars. I think one of my favorite things, Sellers. I mean, he might not put up the flashiest statistics, but he's probably the epitome of being able to help his team stay mentally locked into a game. No matter what this game looks like, things get a little crazy or they completely look like they're out of any sort of contention, and this guy just keeps going. There's no quit in his game. There's no quit in his leadership. I mean, no touchdowns, at least no passing touchdowns, 1 interception, but 166 on the ground after 164 through the air. There's so much more to be talking about when it comes to South Carolina, and luckily we'll get another opinion opinion on the matter because we have Rich Sermonello joining us on the other side of this break. Make sure you're following SportsGrid over at SportsGrid. And then, most importantly, make sure you continue to hang out with us here at College Football Today, the post-game show. Party ramping up on the other side of this quick break here on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like and be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, that's true.
Back at it with college football today, the post-game show, and as promised, it's now Kasey Hudson, Dubs Anderson, and Rich Sermonello to run through the Saturday slate, all of the excitement here for Rivalry Weekend. Sometimes you just got to slow that down. The R at the end of Rivalry rolls into the weekend, but it's been madness, Rich. And right before we cut to the break, Dubs and I were talking about South Carolina besting Clemson because Clemson thought, hey, we're going to leave this in the hands of our defense, and South Carolina said that you will. We're actually going to take this one for ourselves, coming out on top 17-14. But what I'm most impressed about is the mental altitude of Sellers, the ability to lead his team, how he stays in a game, and oh, by the way, 164 through the air and 166 on the ground. Is he one of the dual threat quarterbacks we're not giving enough love to?
Yeah, listen, I think great to be with you guys as always. Happy Saturday night to you. Happy week 14. Yeah, Sellers, for people who don't know, by the way, he's a redshirt freshman. So the best is still ahead for Lenoris Sellers. And, you know, what we saw today against Clemson, great late win, is the South Carolina offense basically said, we're going to turn this kid into Jalen Milroe. He's not there as a passer yet, and we've seen that throughout the season. But in terms of rushing, I'll give you one more statistic that'll probably blow your mind, Kasey. 18 broken tackles today. Only one player this season has had more in a single game. And that, no surprise, is Ashton Genty. So he's running at a level of a kid who's going to be either first or second, probably second for the Heisman Trophy. So love to see his development. Unfortunately, I think once we get to Tuesday, I think South Carolina is going to be on the outside looking in. I have a sneaking suspicion because of Miami's loss to Syracuse that Alabama might still have some life. And Alabama beat South Carolina. Both teams are 9-3. They beat the Gamecocks 27-25. I think South Carolina is better right now. If they played, I would give an edge to the Gamecocks. But don't be shocked if Alabama sneaks in as the number 12 seed.
Yeah, certainly one of the big surges at the back end of the season, South Carolina, Rich, and what a run. I mean, they were ranked 13th coming into this season amongst SEC foes. And for the Clemson Tigers, they've gone against two familiar faces from the SEC, and they've lost to both of them. They were number 12 coming in to this week. Surely enough for them to miss out on their playoff chances from today's result.
Yeah, but, not so fast because of the Miami loss. Clemson goes to the ACC championship game. So in Charlotte, we'll have those longtime rivals, I say facetiously, Clemson versus SMU. And, SMU is one of those teams in the preseason I was dead wrong about. I thought they would struggle getting acclimated to life in the ACC, a lot more travel going to not only our coast here on the East Coast, but also your coast, Dubs, games against Cal and Stanford. So all of that travel, step up in weight class, I thought they would struggle. That has not happened. I mean, Rhett Lashley has had a national coach of the year type season. They're on an absolute heater, 11-1. Kevin Jennings has been great under center. The defense is making a lot of plays in opposing backfields. So SMU against Clemson. Clemson has been to Charlotte many, many times. This is a first for SMU. I just don't know right now if the ACC is assured of getting two teams into the playoffs.
Yeah, that is a good point. Sticking with SMU for a moment there, I like that you mentioned the surprise that their season has been because their offensive tempo is matching their defensive tempo, which helps them just carry the correct balance to go against opponents or to best a number of opponents. Earlier today, you guys know we have to play the bracket game because they released the potential possible playoff picture. They actually had SMU as a 10 seed, potentially taking on Notre Dame at a 7 seed. What would you make of this matchup considering SMU comes away with the win and Notre Dame comes away with a win? But there was some close calls there versus USC throughout all the way to that third quarter there.
Yeah, I dogged SMU in the offseason. I won't do it now. This team has been very impressive, so I don't want to be disrespectful in any way. But I've been saying this for the past month. Notre Dame very quietly is looking in a season where, Dubs, you mentioned it, Georgia didn't look very good against Georgia Tech. I'm sure you guys talked about the Ohio State loss to Michigan. Now, Oregon is still undefeated, but I do see some flaws there. Why not Notre Dame at this point? I mean, this team has just been on cruise control since the Week 2 loss to Northern Illinois. Riley Leonard has fit in nicely with that offense. Jeremiah Love, the running back, is Alvin Kamara 2.0. Defense has been outstanding. They've been able to overcome some key losses, particularly in the secondary. So Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman, their season's over. They're going to have a long break, no championship game, obviously, as an independent. So by the time we get to that opening round on December 20th, they're going to have 3-4 weeks to prepare for that opponent. I do not sleep on Notre Dame. I think they are a legitimate contender to win a national championship this year.
Yeah, you'd hate to get them in some tough weather there as well. They're certainly going to be a very tough out moving through into the playoffs. Rich, we're trying to talk about all the projected teams who will be playing in the postseason, but what's next for Lincoln Riley and USC, the Trojans? I mean, they finished 6-6 after today's loss. 500, not really good enough. There was a lot of expectations coming in for a new year, and they just haven't seemed to live up to the billing.
It's a great question. I'm a fan of the coach. I'm very aware of what he's done in the past, both as an offensive coordinator and then the head coach at Oklahoma before getting to USC. So the talent is there. That's unquestionable. Something just isn't clicking at Troy. And one of the things that's interesting, Dubs, is they figured the defense out this year. We didn't see it against Notre Dame, obviously, but they were improved in 2024 defensively. But then the offense regressed, and Miller Moss wasn't quite the quarterback that they thought they would be or that we saw in the bowl game last year. So this is going to be a pivotal offseason for Lincoln Riley. I think the Trojans will be very active in the transfer portal. There's a lot of NIL money, so it shouldn't be a problem. to get kids to go to USC. I think this might be do or die time, which is shocking. I thought it was a great hire when he was plucked out of Norman. But he needs a big offseason. That could involve coaches. That certainly will involve the transfer portal. But, if Lincoln Riley is 7-5, 8-4 next year, I mean, it might be time for USC to start thinking about a new leader, which is bizarre. I mean, he was one of the best young coaches in the game just 3 years ago.
Yeah, I love that question, Dubs. Do or die brought one thing to mind for me. Today was a big do or die game or day of games. And then you've got Alabama that you mentioned, Rich, kind of being one of those teams on the outside looking in. But are there any other teams that stood out to you with the wins or the losses that took place today that could either be on the outside looking in or their playoff chances can now be in peril?
Well, I mean, not really. I don't think we learned too much other than the teams that are out of the Big 12 mix. We have a fascinating game going on right now between BYU and Houston. BYU's out of the mix. It's going to be Arizona State is in, and it's going to be either Iowa State or Colorado, depending upon what happens with BYU. BYU wins, it's Iowa State. If Houston pulls the upset, we're going to have Arizona State versus Coach Prime in Colorado, which would be arguably the most entertaining game of championship weekend next weekend. So not really. I don't know about in peril. Obviously, Ohio State's out of the Big Ten title game, but they're going to be in the playoff. Texas A&M loses. They're out of the picture at this point. Georgia's fine regardless of what happens. To me, the biggest surprise of all, obviously, Michigan winning and Penn State with a shot next Saturday night in Indianapolis to not only win the Big Ten, but to have an automatic bye in the opening round of the playoffs.
There you go. You set it up perfectly because I'm sitting here looking at Penn State versus Maryland, the score, the points that they were able to put up, some of the question marks that have been around their game over the course of the last 3 to 4 weeks. So that's the perfect place that we will pick up on the other side of this quick break. I'll remind you yet again, follow SportsGrid over at SportsGrid. Make sure you're following these two gentlemen as we continue to run through the Saturday slate for college football. It's the end of the regular season, but the excitement has just gotten started. Make sure you keep your coverage with us here on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like and be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
back at it with college football today, the post-game show here on SportsGrid TV. Rich teed it up perfectly right before the break, mentioning Penn State. And look, I've given them a bit of a hard time here and there. Maybe I'm just doing it to root against our dear friend Dave Sharapan. But regardless, a 44-7 victory for the Nittany Lions today. More importantly, them able to, finally cover a spread for the most part. Last week, they had this 11.5 spread go up against Minnesota, only get past them by 1 point, 26-25. Rich, I got to ask, what did you make of their performance today, and what does it say about what to expect potentially in the postseason? Because they've been so strong. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but they have relied on their defense to get them through a number of games.
Yeah, that's a perfect presentation, Kasey. I couldn't agree more. I think they have one of the better rosters in the country, outside of maybe Georgia and Ohio State. But I think in terms of pure talent, next level, blue chip, 4- and 5-star players, they're littered with those kinds of guys on both sides of the ball. So I agree with you. This is more this postseason beginning next Saturday. I think that's a fascinating game against Oregon with a lot at stake. Both will be in the playoffs, but that bye is going to be critical to both programs. I think this next month and a half is a referendum on James Franklin. I hate to be so specific, but he needs to start winning big football games. He needs to start taking down elite programs, and he's going to have an opportunity on December, whatever next Saturday is, December the 6th, I think it is.
Yeah.
6th, 7th for the next Saturday. And then also whenever the playoffs begin for them, whether that's a bye later in December or December 20th. So talent is not the issue. Resources are not the issue. James Franklin's got to start winning big football games. And a chance to win the Big Ten title is a massive one for both he and the Lions.
Speaking of winning games, Rich, I feel like that's all Oregon and the Ducks know how to do. 49-21 over the Huskies. Dylan Gabriel was fantastic again here this afternoon. Could even say clinical at times. They were number one coming into this week. They put up another impressive display. Is this the clear-cut choice, best team in college football and the ones to take down as we move into the postseason?
Yeah, the reason why I would say yes is I still think Ohio State has the best roster. I know we haven't seen that throughout the season, certainly didn't see it earlier today, particularly at the quarterback position. But I think pound for pound, Ohio State has the best team. I would not abandon them. If you're looking to wager some money on the playoffs, I think Ohio State is legitimately still the favorite, even though they'll have to play an extra game. But Oregon and Dan Lanning, you're right. I mean, they are just a locomotive right now on both sides of the ball. I love the way you described Dylan Gabriel. Surgical, precise, all of that applies. Veteran, seen and done everything. I think he's the perfect quarterback to bring into the postseason. Can Oregon get over the hump and finally win a national championship? I mean, this seems to be the year. It's remarkable that we've gone through an entire season, guys, 134 FBS teams, only one left standing without a loss, and that is the Oregon Ducks. So I think for good reason they'll go into the playoffs as the favorite. Let's see what happens against Penn State. I like Oregon in that game. I like Dan Lanning in that game. And, man, I'll tell you, these Ducks have certainly been impressive. They had some holes at the beginning of the season that they quickly filled, especially on the offensive line. And I think Dan Lanning is showing why he's one of the 5 or 6 best young coaches in college football right now.
Absolutely. Right now, Oregon's sitting at plus 350 for that national championship title. We'll see how they continue to progress moving forward. You mentioned some exposure holes, though, Rich. I was wondering if you wanted to expand upon that just in case any bettors wanted some angles while we move into the postseason after this Saturday becomes an official wrap.
Yeah, the two, I'm accustomed to Oregon having a veteran offensive line, plug and play. Not the case this year. They've done a great job, but let's see how they do in a playoff setting against fellow ranked opponents. The schedule wasn't that stiff outside of the Ohio State game, which they did survive in Eugene. The other concern that I often have about Oregon is pass defense. They still can be beat over the top. They still will allow big plays through the air. So against the right quarterback, or for Oregon, possibly the wrong quarterback, they could struggle in pass defense. So, I want to see what Oregon can do against a Georgia, a Texas, that type of a team. They survived Ohio State, But pretty soon the gauntlet is going to begin, and the expectations are there as well. And that's not something that Oregon is typically used to.
And Rich, taking a look at the odds board, the latest market as we come out the backside of rivalry weekend for the national championship, it's Oregon plus 350 shortest price, Texas at plus 420, and then Georgia at plus 450. So this one still feels like it's wide open. The odds makers cannot decide who should be the clear-cut top choice there. But on the Heisman side of things, there's no doubt about it. If you look at the odds board at the FD Sportsbook, it is Travis Hunter, the two-way superstar for Colorado. And again, on Friday night, he truly was spectacular. Coach Prime set him up to succeed. Is it all done and dusted? Can we just set the pose, give him the award now?
Yeah, I think so. I think the odds are extremely short for good reason. I think most voters and a lot of voters that I've spoken to just, they realize that we're watching something special. I said on one of our shows, maybe in October, that we have to be careful not to normalize what Travis Hunter is doing. And I think it's easy to do that. We've seen him now in Colorado for the past 2 seasons. We watched him at Jackson State briefly. We realized how good he was as a high schooler. But to be as good as he is on 2 sides of the ball and to play over 100 snaps a game is something that we've never seen, not in this lifetime. So I think he's legitimately the high. And by the way, it's also in a year where we don't have an abundance of great candidates. Cam Ward looked like that guy and then sort of drifted away. Dylan Gabriel could have been that guy, but just never gained enough traction. And Ashton Genty has the numbers over 2,000 yards rushing, but I think there will be enough voters, Dubs, that will say Mountain West schedule, Boise State. I'm just not willing to do that right now. So unfortunately, I think we'll have a boring Heisman ceremony knowing that it'll be Travis Hunter.
Yeah, sometimes team and conference just weigh a little too heavy in that conversation regardless of the talent. But we're going to shake things up on the other side here. It's the end of the regular college football season. We've talked about Heisman candidates. We've talked about national championship candidates. But have we built our own top 3 guys who we would pick for our team? Not quite yet, but we will on the other side of this break. So make sure you stick with us here on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
watching College Football Today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson, Dubs Anderson, and Rich Sermonello. And if you caught us before the break, I mentioned that I was going to put these two gentlemen in the hot seat. We've talked about the Heisman candidacy. We've talked about national championship. We've painted as much of a playoff picture as we can, wins, loss, you name it. But now there's been so much talent. There's been so many great games this season. Today marks the end of the regular collegiate football season, so we're going to have our own fun here. I told these two gentlemen during the break, pick your players as if we could draft for our own national championship opportunity. Who's your go-to quarterback? Who's your go-to wide receiver or tight end? And who is your go-to running back? Because that running back class, we talk about Jetney, we talk about a number of these guys, but there's still so many talented players not being illuminated enough. So I'm intrigued to see where you guys lean with this one. Rich, I'm going to start with you. Who's your quarterback? Who's your receiver, tight end? And who is your running back to go to the national championship with?
Well, first off, Dubs, I apologize if I take any of your answers. We didn't compare anything here, so I hope I don't force you to audible on the fly. Quarterback for me is Cam Ward. I think he's actually not getting enough credit. That Miami team is talented, but for much of the season, he put them on his shoulders. I think he improved dramatically from the Washington State days. A tremendous heart. Every time Miami was down this season, he would rally the troops. Love to have him in a huddle. Give me Cam Ward at quarterback. Running back, obviously Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the country, so I won't go there. Cam Scatterbo, to me, at Arizona State, is symbolic of what is happening right now in Tempe, and that is one of the great stories in college football. The kid plays with a ton of heart. I've mentioned it before. Started his career in the FCS at Sac State. Up in Northern California. He's just a bulldozer. He's fun to watch. He'll do everything for the offense, catch passes, run through tackles. Did it again today with 3 touchdowns. And I'll go with another Swiss Army knife in terms of receiver. I am fascinated by Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end. Love the way Andy Kotelnicki has used him this season. He'll use him on direct snaps, jet sweeps, obviously in the passing game. He's used him throwing the ball this season. He is going to be at 6'6", 251. I think he is the next great tight end in the NFL. So he's not a wide receiver. But in terms of pass catcher, I'll go with Tyler Warren of Penn State.
I'm a fan of that. I mean, you always win me over when you bring in the tight end, one of my favorite positions, although my love for football started with the linebacker position and John Lynch. Dubs, I hope that gave you a minute to sit on some things. What would you bring to the table for your national championship lineup or 3-star lineup, as we say in the hockey world?
And I mean, Kasey, I didn't need much time because I went straight to the top of the board. You can call me chalky, call me whatever you like, but if I'm picking the 3 superstars I need to build around, Dylan Gabriel, I mean, I've been hyping the praise, the fanfare all season long, and what Oregon have done has been truly special, and I do think they're well built to keep that momentum and go on and win the national championship. At running back, Ashton Jeanty, I mean, this guy looks like Derrick Henry playing against 15-year-old high schoolers out there on a Saturday afternoon. He truly is unstoppable from what we have seen at Boise State. The numbers are just historical and certainly puts him in the conversation of being one of the best running backs that we've seen at the college ranks. So give me Ashton Jeanty at that running back position, and wide receiver, surprise, surprise, Travis Hunter for Colorado. I mean, two-way superstar, yes, but the numbers he's put up as a wide receiver alone, and there was so much buzz and expectation coming into this year. I was probably one of the few people, not one of the few people, but I guess one of the big advocates of going against Coach Prime and the Buffaloes. I thought they were vulnerable. I thought they were all, flash and buzz and didn't have that substance, but they've proven me wrong. They've played some really good football. Travis Hunter is a really special talent. So I took the 3 biggest superstars I could find there, Kasey. It's been a sellout. Rich understood the assignment. I didn't.
No. You
can't argue with superstars. Yeah.
I mean, nobody can debate against that. And plus, it's a good balance because leave it to me to be the rebel of the group and be like, who would I throw in the mix? But they maybe aren't standing off the stat sheet as well. Look, I've been hyping up Jackson Dart all season long. I've said the praises for him. I mean, using his arm, using his legs, the amount of times that he's picked up massive rushing yards. I love a good dual threat quarterback. I'm going to stick with it. Jackson Dart for my quarterback. The running back room is where I really get tossed up. Jordan James has been tremendous for Oregon, and I just love the workhorse that he's been. Weisner for Texas, though. I mean, 160-plus rushing yards he makes look flawless. And then for the wide receiver, it's just so hard for me to pick. But as of right now, I'm going to stick with Texas and Gunnar Helm because he's just been exciting for this Texas offense. But as you guys know, this has been College Football Today, the post-game show. Rich Simonello, Dubs Anderson. Make sure you're following everybody over on social media. And most importantly, SportsGrid. It's a wrap for the collegiate football season, but we got so much more to go. Make sure you keep all your coverage with us here on SportsGrid.